Confusion is key for the hypnotist. If you are in an anxious and disoriented state, you are more susceptible to mass formation psychosis. I'll let Mike Mandel from the Hypnosis Academy explain here.
When you are going to do good hypnotic work with someone, one of the problems is you have to, first of all, depotentiate the conscious mind. And by that, by depotentiating it, I mean you must remove its power to interfere with your work. We want the conscious mind out of the way, and we want the critical faculty distracted. We want the critical faculty to become permeable and open up, or at least not notice. We have to find a way of getting information into the unconscious, and that's how a hypnotic trance works. We've got to depotentiate the power of the conscious mind to interfere, and we have to bypass the critical faculty, not critical factor. Thank you. So, one of the ways we can do this is confusion. Erickson pointed out repeatedly that confusion was central to many of his ways of working with someone. As soon as we create a state of confusion, guess what happens? The brain wants resolution.
Yep.
Resolution means it doesn't like things left hanging in a confused state. It wants them sorted out, figured out, and everything essentially back to normal, whatever that happens to be.
Wow.
Anytime we introduce confusion early in a hypnotic session, and it must be early for the most part, in order to open this door into the unconscious, the very act of introducing confusion makes the person feel weird, and we can then dovetail that or cascade that into a true hypnotic trance.
Confusing rules like wear a mask when you walk into a restaurant, but then take it off as soon as you sit at the table. None of these things make sense, but are key to keep people confused. Confusion and free-floating anxiety will make people beg for a resolution. They will look to authority figures for this and listen to whatever is being said in hopes they can cure their symptoms, even though it makes no sense logically.
All the free-floating anxiety, which is extremely painful because it always threatens to turn into panic. So all this free-floating anxiety is attached to, connected to the object of anxiety indicated in the narrative, and there is a huge willingness to participate in the strategy to deal with this object of anxiety. Because in this way, people feel that they can control their anxiety and their psychological discontent better. So all this anxiety connects to this object of anxiety, and there is a huge willingness to participate in the strategy. And that leads up to something very specific. People suddenly feel connected again in a heroic struggle with the object of anxiety. So a new kind of solidarity, a new kind of social bond, and a new kind of meaning-making, sense-making emerges in society. And that's the reason why people follow the narrative, why people buy into the narrative, and why they are willing to participate in the strategy, even if it is utterly absurd. Because the reason why they follow it has nothing to do with the fact that it is correct or accurate or scientific. Not at all. The reason why they buy into the narrative is because it leads to this new social bond, this new solidarity. People are social beings, and being socially isolated is really painful. And through the process of mass formation, they switch from the very negative state of social isolation to the opposite state of maximal connectedness, of the maximal connectedness that exists in a crowd or a mass. And that in itself leads up to a kind of mental intoxication, which is the real reason why people stick to the narrative, why people are willing to go along with the narrative, even, as we said, if it is utterly wrong, and even more important, even if they lose everything that is important to them personally. Because mass formation is a kind of hypnosis. And just like in hypnosis, the attention is focused on this very small part of reality that is indicated by the story. And just like in hypnosis, people are not aware of everything that happens mentally outside of this small focus of attention. That's something very striking. Like in hypnosis, what you see is that a simple hypnotic procedure is sufficient to focus the attention of someone so much on one aspect of reality that the person will never feel that someone cuts into his flesh. It's a procedure that is used in some hospitals when someone is allergical to a chemical anesthesia, sometimes a simple hypnotic procedure is used, which focuses the attention on a positive thing, and then the surgeon can cut straight through the breastbone. The patient will not feel it. So that's exactly what happens in mass formation. The attention is focused on the virus, for instance, in this case, and then people are not aware that they lose their psychological health or their physical health, or that they lose their wealth, their material well-being, and so on. That's one of the most problematic aspects of the phenomenon of mass formation. Mass formation is a kind of hypnosis.